We need to be building more data sets like this to help people to get information in their languages in a format that they can understand. A colleague introduced me to RESPIN. RESPIN is a speech and language data set in 9 languages of India. When we're talking about data set here, we're talking about basically people recording sentences in those 9 languages. These sentences in this case have to do with financial inclusion and agriculture. And these are the kinds of recordings that can be used to develop what's called automatic speech recognition. Automatic speech recognition is quite a difficult thing to do. There's basically 2 parts of it. One part is when a language model, which is what you build from these recordings, from these data sets, can recognize speech and convert it into text. And the other part is recognizing the text and converting that into speech. And that part where you're going from speech into text, that's really hard. Anyone who's ever seen automatic subtitles, automatic captioning knows that can be quite difficult. So these data sets are really important. And I found them really interesting for 3 reasons. First, it's a lot of data. There isn't the size of data sets available outside of sort of the 20 major languages, at least not very commonly. Secondly, the developers worked really hard to make sure that the people doing the recordings were informed about what the recordings were for, how they were going to be used, and how their voices were going to be used. And they tried hard to treat them fairly, which isn't always the case when developing language data sets. But what I found most interesting was how they treated dialects. They not only paid attention to the dialects, they tagged them and traced them and made sure that the people who would be using the voice data would know which dialects the recordings were in. This is important, particularly for speech data, because the kind of French you speak in France is different than the French that you speak in Haiti. Similarly, the Swahili you speak in Kenya is different than the Swahili that's spoken in, say, Congo. And that's, of course, true for every language. So treating those dialects respectfully is really important. I also think that this is a really great initiative because if we want to be supporting the most marginalized to reap the benefits of artificial intelligence, we need to be building more data sets like this to help people to get information in their languages in a format that they can understand. And I hope that the Gates Foundation, who supported this work, and other foundations that are leading lights in building the foundations of artificial intelligence and speech data and language data, continue to support this kind of work where we're collecting ethical language data ethically. And that's what's interesting in low resource language tech.